This is chapter number 4, which is the making of a global world. The making of a global world. What does we mean? What do we mean when we say the making of global world? See, this is our earth, a globe. And when we say that this globe, we have several countries, and then we say world, globe with all the countries, it is global worlds, and how they are interlinked together with respect to their culture, with respect to their trade, with respect to their movement, means the people movement and the things movement. So this is how the global world is formed. We'll start with the pre-modern world. So in order to understand the making of a global world, we have to understand the history of trade, migration, and people search for work and the movement of capitals. So this is pre-modern world. Let me just tell you about this, that human societies have steadily more interlinked. In different societies, it can be of any world. So they are quite interlinked means. Globalization means coming together of all the countries, most of the countries, you can say not all, most of the countries together so that they are seen, they talk, they move together. So human societies have steadily more interlinked. The travelers, traders, priests and pilgrims, they travel vast distance for carrying goods or money, ideas, skills, inventions, and even germs and disease. The Indus Valley civilization was linked with West Asia, and then we'll talk about cowries. Cowries, a form of currency from Maldives. So this is what I was telling about, that this global world is a process which has formed due to trade, migration of people in search of work, because when people go, this is a labor, or people have mind, they have culture, they have thought, movement of capital, that is the money, and various things. So that is how things got together. As I said, societies have become steadily more interlinked now. That is, the travelers, we have seen in the ancient times, travelers, traders, priests, pilgrims, they are all traveled vast distances for search of knowledge, opportunity, spirituality fulfillment, or even if their land is not good or there is fighting, they can escape the persecution or any other thing. So they just not move. They moved to carry good, to carry money. They had values, skills, ideas, inventions, and even germs and diseases. So this is how the Indus Valley civilization with present-day West Asia, it's coastally linked. And there is a word, Hindi, kaudi, that is seashells. And this was the form of currency, cowries, and it was from Maldives. And this currency was even in China and East Africa, it was applicable there. So even the germs people carried. So here is a picture which is showing the image of a ship on a memorial stone, Goa Museum. So this shows that how important was people going from one place to another using these kind of transportation or surface transport ships. Then silk routes link the world. So there is not only one silk route, there were numerous silk routes. So let me give you an idea of this first of all, that the silk routes were regarded as the most important route linking the distant part of the world. The routes were existed even before the Christian era and flourished till the 15th century. The Buddhist preachers, Christian missionaries, and then later the Muslim preacher they used to travel by these routes. So these routes proved to be great source of trade and cultural, you can say, links between distinct parts of the world. So here is a picture of one of the Silk Route of Guangzhou, China. So as I said, Silk routes. These routes were very important because these routes paved the path for different type of things to go here and there. Okay, that is the people, the Chinese pottery, the textiles, the spices from India and South Asia. So, and in return, what they get? They get gold and silver from where? From Europe to Asia. So Asia is sending textile spices. It is getting gold and silver. And also trade and cultural exchange, very important. If you see, the religion also spread using these routes, because Christian missionaries, Muslim preachers, they all might have took these routes. So this is how these routes interlink people, Asia, Europe, etc. We'll take an example of food travels, spaghetti and potato. So let me give you a brief idea, then we'll discuss in detail. So this is a picture of merchants from Venice and the Orient exchanging goods. So these people are, you can say in summary, they are exchanging goods from Marco Polo. So conquest, food travels, and then disease and trade all happened. So let me tell you what happened here. Food also traveled from one part to another. If you take an example of spaghetti, now this spaghetti was noodles. So noodles, it traveled from China, and when it came to the Western world, it became spaghetti. This noodles also only was called as spaghetti. I'll give you one more example. Arab traders, they took pasta to Sicily, and Sicily is what? Today's Italy. So Arab traders, this pasta, which is this is very famous in Sicily, that is Italy. It was not there until Arab traders bought this pasta. Okay, so this is how things move from one place to another. If you talk about our country, foods like potatoes, soya, groundnuts, maize, tomatoes, chilies, sweet potatoes, they were not known. They were not known to us about 5 centuries ago. They only came after that. And these foods, it came to, or they were only introduced in Europe and Asia after one guy accidentally discovered the vast continent that would later become known as the Americas. So he was Christopher Columbus. He accidentally discovered Americas, and all these, the name I took, potatoes, soya, groundnuts, maize, tomato, chili, sweet potatoes, they all came from the Americas. So this is not America, okay? It's Americas. It has various, I'll just tell you what Americas means. So America here means North America plus South America and the Caribbean. So when you combine them, North America, South America and Caribbean, then we call them as America. And those who lived there were called American Indians. All these food have come from there. So sometimes these foods were so important that even if this food was not available, people died. If you see, this is an Irish potato famine. This is 10 lakh people. 10 lakh people died in this famine, potato famine, because they were not getting potato. They were so used to this potato that when the potato was not growing, or it was famine there, from 1845 to 1849, this many people died. So this is how food also made a lot of difference. This disease destroyed. There was a disease that is why the potato crop actually was destroyed in mid 1840s, and these all died because of starvation, not getting enough food. So conquest, disease, and trade. Let me tell you some summary here, then we'll go to the detail. First is that in 16th century, after European sailors found a sea route to Asia and America, they found the sea routes. The Indian subcontinent had been known for bustling trade with goods, people, custom, and knowledge. So it was a crucial point in their trade network. And after the discovery of America, its vast lands, abundant crops, a lot of crops were there, minerals began to transform trade and lives of everywhere. Precious metals, particularly silver from mines which are located in Peru and Mexico, it enhanced the wealth of what? Europe, and financed its trade with Asia. The Portuguese and the Spanish conquest and colonization of America was underway. The most powerful weapon of the Spanish conquerors was not military weapon. It was not conventional military weapon, but germs of smallpox germs which they carried. America's original inhabitants had no immunity against such type of diseases, so they died. This is called biological warfare. So let me go to the detail of this, and then we'll discuss this one by one. As I said, that in 16th century, European sailors found sea route to Asia and then to America. So this Indian Ocean, as we know, were known for its trade, goods, people, customs, knowledge, and they were crisscrossing in water. And this Indian subcontinent were very crucial because it was in the network. Before its discovery, that is America, when it was not discovered, it was cut off from the world. It was cut off from the world. But the abundant crops, the lot of crops it can produce, the minerals it has, it changed everything. As I said, precious material, metals, particularly silver, from mines located in present-day Peru and Mexico, this metal enhanced or emancipated Europe's wealth and financed its trade with Asia. And then, if there is a question, it is asked that legend spread in 17th century Europe about, or there was a story, you can say, South America fabled wealth, and this is El Dorado. Many expeditions set off in search of El Dorado. So El Dorado is the fabled city of gold, El Dorado. Now, as we just saw, that the Portuguese and the Spanish, they conquest and they conquered, you can say, colonized the America, but they didn't do it using their firepower. They don't need it because they took smallpox, a disease, with them. So it was kind of a biological warfare. Why? Because these Europeans, they have immunity for this smallpox disease, but the inhabitants, that is the American Indians, you can say, they were not immune to this smallpox. So this smallpox killed almost everyone. And it spread to those places where these Europeans didn't go. They don't go, but still smallpox, because it is a communicable disease, it went like fire. And these colonizers, Portuguese, Spanish, etc., they don't have to fight because people were dying by themselves because of smallpox. So as I said, it was not required. People were dying by themselves. So there were, stories, or you can say there were incidents. Why people went or they fled to America? Because the European place, it was those cities were having diseases. In Europe, there were always religious conflicts, and if you dissent against the religion, you are persecuted, killed. That is why most of the people, they find America a better place. And also, the African people who were captured as a slave, they were sent to America for what? For growing cotton, for growing sugar, for the European markets. See, until well into the 18th century, there were two countries, they were very rich, world's richest country. And who else than China and India? They were China and India. But China, from the 15th century, it was very happy to live in isolation. That is, China restricted overseas contacts and it retreated into isolation, that it doesn't want to trade or talk or have any relationship with the world. That is why China went down and down. As I said, China was the richest country. And because China didn't took any interest, America became the center of world trade. And then Europe emerged again because America was rising. The importance of America was rising. China's role was reducing. So this was the center of world trade westwards. That is, Europeans were doing it. So Europeans or Europe now emerged as the center of world trade. If you see, this is a picture of slaves. All these are slaves and they are well dressed. They are bought well dressed. There are two kids also, women, so that they can be bought. The 19th century, from 1815 to 1914. So first, let me tell you about the world economy takes shape, then I'll go into the detail. So here, there was abolition of corn law in United Kingdom. Under pressure from the landowner groups, the government restricted the import of food grains. After the corn laws were scrapped, food could be imported in Britain more cheaply than it could be produced in the country. So British farmers were unable to compete with imports. Vast areas of land were left uncultivated. So as the food prices fell, consumption in Britain rose. Faster industrial growth in Britain led to higher incomes and more food imports. So what I just talked about, let me take you to the detail. As I said, in 19th century, world was changing economically, politically, socially, culturally, and technologically also. So there were three types of movements or flow. So economists, they have identified that in this international exchanges, economic exchanges, money exchanges, there are three things which were flowing or moving. The first was the goods, that is cloth or wheat. The second was labor, that is people were migrating for employment, in search of employment. And the third was the movement of capital for short-term and long-term investment over long distances. Let me just tell you again. So the economists, they have identified three types of movement, flows you can say. The first is the trade, that is trade in goods, cloth and wheat. The second is the labor migration for employment. And the third is the movement of capital for short-term and long-term investment over the long distances. So these three flows were closely interwoven and they affected the lives of the people. For example, if you see that labor migration, because here human beings were involved, it has all the restrictions over it. But when the good flows or something go from one place to another, the restrictions were not that much. So as I said, the world economy take shape. So what happened here in Britain, let us talk about, because the food production, the pattern was changing, the consumption was changing. Countries like Britain, self-sufficient in food, but there was the social conflict was there, the living standard conflict was there. How? In UK, England, Britain, population growth has increased. Because the population has increased in 18th century, there was a demand of food grains. But because there was a pressure on the government that they should not bring the food material, that is corn, from outside, that is they should not import. Why? Because there were pressure from the landed groups, people who own land, who were producing food, or you can say corn. So import of corn was restricted, and this was known as corn laws. Please understand what is corn laws. The corn law means the import of the food materials, especially corn, was restricted. But because the demand of food was increasing and people were not happy, this corn laws were finally abolished. After this corn law was scrapped or abolished, now the food can be imported to Britain. But it was cheap. So British agriculturists, they were not able to compete with these imports, which are less in price. So large areas were left uncultivated. People were out of work, they got unemployed, and they just ran or migrated to other countries, other places. So this is how the world economy takes shape, just because of these things. I just talked about migration. See, this is the immigrant ship leaving for US, full of immigrants, and here this is of Ireland. Irish immigrants waiting to board the ship. So as things were going on in Britain, as food prices fell, consumption also gone up high. From the mid 19th century, faster industrial growth in Britain also led to people having higher income. So therefore, there were more imports of food. That is, in the world, Eastern Europe, Russia, America, Australia, in these places, people were producing food for whom? To feed Britain, to feed British. So it is not, only the clearing of land. When you want to send something, or if you are creating agriculture product, you have to send them. So railways was needed, ship was needed, cargoes were needed. You need to have more docks. That means there were a lot of buildings and settlements. Labor and capital is required. So capital came from where? From London. So as the demand for labor in places, because this country is not very, very large, people are less. So how to get the labor? The labor came from America. Australia, means these labor, short supply was there. So demand for labor in places where labor was in short supply, in America and Australia, it led to more migration. So nearly 50 million people, as I said here, you can see the picture also, 50 million people migrated or emigrated from Europe to America. All over the world, 150 million, they left their home, they crossed the oceans and just try to find a land for their better future. Now, by the 1890, again, there were exchanges, complex exchanges. As I said, labor movement was there, capital was flowing, that money was going here and there, the technology transfer was there, the ecologies were changing of the environment, the people, and the business. That is, the food is not coming from your backyard. It is coming from miles away, very far away, right? So railway was used, ship was used, and because labor is needed, and that is, labor should be lower paid. So people from Southern Europe, Asia, Africa, and Caribbean were taken, right? They were taken as the low-paid worker. If you take an example of India, in Punjab, West Punjab, this this is a semi-desert place. So British government did what? They created canals for irrigation. Very good network of canals, that is, water can flow for irrigation, so that they can grow wheat and cotton. And this wheat and cotton was grown just for export, sending it to other countries. So these canal colonies, that is the part of Punjab where these peasants got settled, they were known as canal colonies. So food is just an example. Food is just an example, right? Cultivation of which expanded worldwide to feed British textile mills also. That is not only food, but people or countries were growing cotton. Why? Because British textile mills needed them. Rubber also. So this, not only food, other things were also being produced so that they can be exported for a country or a place where it is required. So if you see, from 1820 to 1914, world trade estimated to have multiplied 25 to 40 times. This is how trade was going on. And 60% of the trade was comprised of what? Primary products, that is agriculture products like wheat, cotton, minerals like coal. So what was the role of the technology? The role of technology, let me give you some idea first. Technology has a great impact on the transformation of 19th century world, such as railways, steamship and telegraph. Technological advances were often the result of social, political and economic factors. The refrigerated ships greatly helped to transport the perishable food like the meat, etc. over a long distance. So it greatly facilitated the shipment of frozen meat from America, Australia or New Zealand to different European countries. So how this technology helped? The railways, the steamships, the telegraph, all were inventions that transformed the trade and globalization of the world. Okay, let me tell you, these faster railways, lighter wagons and large ships were made just to make these markets and the trade to happen, you can say fast. If you see 20 to 40 times it increased, that is, there was a role of technology for faster railways, making lighter wagons and larger ships. I'll give an example. Of meat. Here is a picture of a cattle show. Cattle are showed and people buy it. Here is meat uploaded or loaded on the ship. So the trade of meat is a very good example to show how these technology helped, and all these are connected process. Till the 1870s, animals were shipped live, the livestock, from America to Europe. When it comes to Europe, then they are slaughtered. But animals, they are just animals. They died in voyage. They fell ill. They lose weight. They become unfit to eat. So only it was a luxury. People who are eating in Europe, it's luxury for them. So poor people cannot buy meat. Then came the refrigeration. So this is a technology. How this technology helped? Refrigerated ship with refrigeration, that is cold environment. So now the meat is now sent over long distances. All the perishable foods like eggs, like the dairy products, it can be sent. So this first the meat or the animals are slaughtered in America, Australia and New Zealand. Then they are transported to Europe as a frozen meat. Now the normal people who were eating bread and potatoes, now they can add the meat also in their meal, like butter and eggs, etc. So meat, butter and eggs, these are now can be afforded by the people. This is what happened. Then the late 19th century, we'll talk about this in the next discussion, this late 19th century colonialism. So till then, thank you so much. Take care of yourself.